Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Selectmen regular meeting of Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Materials for the meeting may be viewed online, and that was all on the agenda. We're keeping in accordance with SB 1202. This meeting will be held by electronic transmission. Audio and video are available. And there's also a place on the agenda to sign in should you wish to join us in person on public comment virtually. And with that, we will go to the roll call first. Joseph Crisco.
Here.
Beth Heller, here. Paul Kyriakos.
Here.
David Lober.
Here.
I know you're here.
Here and unmuted.
Sheila McCrevin.
Here.
Okay, thank you. David Vogel.
Here.
Thank you. Administrative Officer, Director of Finance, Tony Genovese.
Here.
Assistant Administrative Officer, Betsy Yagla.
Here.
Town Council, Gerald Weiner.
Here.
And our clerk, Geraldine Shaw.
Here.
And Pua is also joining us. And with that, I will ask everyone to mute themselves. So I'm going to talk for a moment. Item 1 on the agenda is the first selectman's remarks. Good evening, everyone. I first want to send a big thank you to our Human Services team. They organized a group of town staff members to walk around our town center campus last week to participate virtually in the Walk to End Alzheimer's. The team surpassed their goal of $500 by raising $539, and I want to congratulate them all. I understand that there has been some concerns raised by some Woodbridge residents about the fate of the dog park, as the leadership of the dog park cooperative is seeking new volunteer members. I can assure you at this time that the town has no plans to close the dog park. And it is entirely run by volunteers, as was promised when the Board of Selectmen granted the request to create one. As was discussed for months in 2019, the board was also promised that there would be no town tax dollars put toward the park. It is an attractive, well-used, and well-run space, and I have faith that there will be a new group of volunteers ready to step up and take over to continue managing this asset. Again, I will reiterate that at this time, the town has no intentions of closing the dog park. There is a meeting of the Dog Park Cooperative Committee on September 21st at the small dog park enclosure at 5:30 p.m. if anyone is interested in attending and perhaps stepping up and volunteer to help out. You, as members of the Board of Selectmen, recently received a letter with an offer from Doug Gray of Eclipse Development Group to purchase 25 acres of the 155 acres at the former Country Club of Woodbridge. This is the development group working on behalf of New England Brewing Company as they seek to expand their operation. The proposal is to build a state-of-the-art brewery and event center along with approximately 10 acres of rental housing with an affordable component. The proposed purchase price is $1.5 million, and the desired location is the area where the clubhouse sits and the tennis court area. Developer Doug Gray was invited to make a presentation to you this evening, but he informed that as he is unable to attend tonight, he would like to present to us at our October meeting. I will add him to that agenda. On October 31st, I attended the continued evidentiary hearing of the Connecticut Siting Council. If you recall, Verizon is proposing to build a new cell tower in a residential neighborhood at a private residence at 118 Newton Road. This is a private transaction between a neighbor and Verizon. However, the town has tried to work with the neighborhood to prevent a cell tower from being built in any residential neighborhood in town. I was virtually participating in the hearing from 2 to 5 p.m. and was ready to testify, but was not called upon. The hearing has been continued to September 21st, and I expect to be called upon to state that the town's answers to the Siting Council's questions are accurate and also answer any questions the council or other attorneys may ask. Tomorrow, there will be a crane test to verify Verizon's data at the height of the proposed tower on Newton Road and also at another site behind the Public Works facility. This is being organized and paid for by the residents group who are opposing the proposed site, along with their attorney Keith Ainsworth and their engineer David Maxon. I will keep you informed. The videos of the 2 previous hearings have been sent to the town clerk and I believe are also showing on WGA-TV. This Saturday is the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association is holding a Remembrance Ceremony, which will begin at approximately 8:30 a.m. at the front of the new firehouse on Center Road in front of the 9/11 Memorial. I would encourage everyone to attend. It is hard to believe it has been 20 years. Last month, I told you that the town earned another audit award from the Government Finance Officers Association. This month, I'm excited to announce that our finance department is creating a new, more user-friendly, transparent, and interactive budget document. I anticipate this document will be on our website later by October. I believe that this new format will help residents more easily see how their tax dollars are used, and I encourage everyone to read the budget and the audit to be better informed residents. Let me say again, I would ask the Selectmen to please encourage residents to get involved in the budget process now. The budget is discussed and debated at public meetings for months before it is presented to the public at the preliminary budget hearing in April and again at the annual town meeting in May. There are many opportunities to make voices heard and get answers to your questions. The town department's capital budget requests are due in November, and the Board of Finance will begin discussing them in December. To our residents, if there is a particular budget that you're interested in or believe you have ideas for a way to improve any budget, please attend that commission's virtual meetings. To learn more and offer your suggestions, this is the time to let commissions and departments hear from you. All town meetings continue to be held virtually due to the higher rate of COVID-19 transmission. The State Department of Health updates the COVID-19 data tracker website showing a map of Connecticut towns. Woodbridge, like most of our neighbors, are back in the red zone. Red is defined by a transmission rate of 15 positive cases per 100,000 people. This allows the state and residents to compare transmission rates across towns. We are currently at 24.5. We have sent a message to our local businesses strongly encouraging them to require masks regardless of vaccination status of their employees and those purchasing items. The library has canceled indoor programming, and both the library and human services are still trying to do many programs outside. Lastly, as you may have heard, the senior center is currently closed to indoor programming because it flooded during Tropical Storm Ida last week. We are in touch with our insurance company and plan to follow any floodproofing recommendations they have when we complete the renovation. Thank you all, and please continue to do all you can to stay safe. And with that, I will turn to item 2, which is the Woodbridge Board of Education Superintendent, Dr. Jonathan Budd.
Dr.
Is-
Budd, unmute yourself.
I'm on my way. Just a moment. Technologically here, I think. Can you see me at a usual angle?
Yes. Yes, we can
It's
see you.
good to see everybody. We are back to school. We're back to school, everybody. We're on day 6, and it is exciting over here at Beecher Road School. I want to let you know that our enrollment is up about 3% from what was anticipated and budgeted. We're slightly over 830 students now. And when we can get you all back and touring around Beecher, you will see just great things continuing to happen here. We are back for 100% in-person learning and in-person teaching, and we continue to do all those mitigation strategies that are keeping everybody safe and healthy. I want to also reference some things related to our building itself. We are evaluating all aspects of our building so that we can come to you really responsibly with requests that relate to the capital plan, whether it's to our roofs, whether it's to other systems or structures of our building. And so you can expect to hear more from us in the next few weeks and months about that. In addition, I think most of you are familiar with the fact that we have funding from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan, ESSER source. And our recommendation is that we use that to consider some building improvements that wouldn't otherwise be possible without such funding. So we're off to a great start here. We continue to thank the town for its support, and certainly all of you on this call are a major part of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Anyone have any questions for Dr. Budd? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, my friend. Next on the agenda, item 3, the Eagle Scout project. Benjamin Rickle has joined us, I hope, or he's about to. And upgrading the town bulletin board, and also I'll let him do the project. I won't do it for him. Welcome, Ben.
Hello. Can you see me?
Hello.
Oh,
Can't see you yet. No.
should be coming. Oh, here I am.
There you are.
Hello. So if you don't know me, my name's Ben. I'm a scout in Troop 907, and I'm seeking approval for my project. So I'd like to have my whole project around the outdoor bulletin board right next to town hall. I noticed it's not being used too much, and so I'd like to install a reception box for flags to be retired. So I want to use like one of the blue USPS collection boxes. I want to repaint it, and I want to use that so the community can put flags in it, and then if those troops in Woodbridge will take the flags and we'll retire them properly. And then I want to use the bulletin board. Oh, my video stopped. And I want to use the bulletin board to display information on flags, like how to retire them, how to care for them, how to display them, how to fold them. And then I want to put that up. I want to pressure wash that and I want to refurbish that whole thing. I also want to add gravel and pavers to level it out, and I want to use pavers that match the pathway going up to town hall. And lastly, I want to landscape the surrounding area, and I believe that's about it. I want to put plexiglass up in front of it, and I'm going to leave a section for the town so they can still post things on it. And I believe that's about it. Is there any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Ben?
I had a quick question. And can you tell us a little bit about the timing? How much time do you think this will take, and when would you start, assuming you get approval here?
Mhm. So my birthday's in May, so I have I think a little over 8 months. So I'm really just trying to get it done as soon as possible because I don't want to be stressing about it. So I'd expect it in the next couple months. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hey, Ben, I have a question. What are your plans for the landscaping? What do you envision there?
I just want to mostly just cutting back a lot of the bushes and adding in gravel and stuff. Not much
Okay.
gravel, just gravel to level out the area right under it. It's really not that much. Maybe just some cleaning up the surrounding area, not adding anything that's going to be needed to be landscaped by the town. So
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I'm very excited about the flags. I think I have 3 of them. So over the years living here,
Yeah.
so as I keep one outside, and I don't know what to do with them. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people ask if we retire flags. So
Wonderful.
Mhm.
So I would entertain a motion from someone to approve Ben's project as he described.
So moved.
I'll
Thank
second.
Thank you, Sheila. Any further discussion on the project? Hearing none, I would ask everyone to raise your hand, and I'll just count the hands. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see Paul. Paul, did you say aye?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Good luck,
for
Ben.
doing something for our town. That's wonderful. Thank you. And with that, I will move on to liaison reports on item 4, starting with Joe Crisco.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just reporting on the Fire Commission at its August meeting. The primary business was the adoption of a resolution, and the resolution reads as such: the Fire Commission recommends that immediate steps should be taken by the Board of Selectmen to outsource the fire and 911 dispatch system to a regional service provider. And that was the basic business.
And is that it, or you have other
That's
reports?
it. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Paul Kyriakos.
The Amity Board of Education met on August 16th. The Budget Advisory Committee met just prior to the Board of Education meeting, and Matt and the other advisors um, uh, advised the board that they felt that the overage from last year totals, I think, at 2% of the budget. They suggested and advised that the board would be best served by retaining 1%. By state law, apparently, they are entitled to retain up to 2% for capital reoccurring the following year from any overages. But the Finance Advisory Committee advised them that it would probably be best in everyone's interest for them to retain 1%. And later in the meeting, the full board voted on that, and they adopted a retainment of 1%, which I think means 1% will be returned to the towns respectively. There is a bond planned for 2024. I guess there will be a town meeting on the 2nd and a referendum on the 3rd. And I think that's pretty much what I have for the Board of Education. The other boards did not meet in August. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Paul. David Lober.
Yeah, I just had a question for Paul. You said there's going to be a town meeting on the 1st. Did I hear
On
that
the
wrong?
3rd, I think it is, right?
Oh.
May 3rd, right?
Oh, May. Okay.
Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually in May. That's to vote on their budget, I think.
Right.
Yeah, May, not October.
Right. Well, I didn't hear that. That was why I asked the question. Okay. So the Inland Wetlands Commission doesn't meet in August. So there was no meeting. Human Services was delayed because of Labor Day, but the Conservation Commission met. They held elections, and Tim Austin was elected chairman, and Sharon DeCat was elected vice chairman. One of the goals of the Conservation Commission is to work towards completion of the Greenway, part of the open space plan. To that end, they are meeting to review all of the available paper mapping to create an overlay map to delineate the existing Greenway and the gaps eventually to be filled. There is an On+X grant program to help provide access to green space parcels and to promote stewardship of undeveloped land. The next grant applications will be accepted until November 19th, and the commission intends to apply. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, Sheila. I'm going to go unalphabetically next time, so David Vogel doesn't always have to go last.
He's used to it.
You can do
Okay.
reverse alphabetical. I'll still be in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
So I attended the Woodbridge Board of Education most recent meeting. They were looking at some very specific policies that needed to be in place for the start of school specific to COVID, to update what they're doing there to handle that. They've also begun to take a look at budget, and of course, as Dr. Budd mentioned, the ESSER funding. They're also going to go through a process where they have to ask townspeople they'll hold some sort of, I'm assuming, a virtual meeting to ask townspeople what are your preferences, how to spend this federal funding. I've talked with Dr. Budd kind of directly to get a better sense of the facility issues there. I know we had talked in the past about their roof situation, and he's got his new interim director of finance and facilities looking very carefully at the source of, there's some water incursion, for example, in the D wing, but that may have more to do with the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system than it does with specific leaks. So what Dr. Budd is looking to do is to make a very careful analysis of what has to happen, and then make sure that we're going to get a lifespan for any roof materials that are put in place so that we have a 20-year guarantee on that sort of thing. But first he wants to take a careful look to find out exactly what problem we're trying to address there. I also did speak with him a little bit about water incursion that's coming from the bottom up at Beecher. And if you may remember, long ago in the past, that was a major concern. There had been a report put together by Fuss and O'Neill as a consultant there to talk about how water sometimes rushes against the building, gets in the mag wing. They've experienced some now in the North Principal's office, which is kind of unusual. It had never happened there before. So I've encouraged him to keep us apprised and keep the Board of Finance apprised. To the extent that they can use federal funding, terrific. But if it comes to needing money from the town, the capital budget process is coming up very soon. We would definitely want to hear more about what they feel the needs are there. But again, because that's a town building owned by the town, I would think it'd be very important on all of our lists of things to be taken care of that building after the amount of money we've invested in it. We want to keep special care of. So I'll continue to work closely with him and encourage the sharing of information so we can make some really good decisions there. And then separately, Coupop had taken the summer off, basically. Their July and August meetings have been canceled. So they are not due to meet again now until, I believe it's September 27th on Monday. So I'll attend that when it happens. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And David Vogel.
Thank you. I think I'm unmuted now. I attended the Recreation Committee meeting on Monday, August 23rd. Andrea Weinstein was elected chairman, and Smith Mowry was elected as the vice chairman for this coming session. The responses that the commission had to my report about what's been going on at the Board of Selectmen was that they wanted to be kept in mind with, and this is similar to what was expressed in our previous meeting with the group that was with the Arbor Haven group that was planning their possible development of the country club. They wanted, like other commissions, they want to be kept in mind when those plans are coming to any kind of finalization. And then they also expressed interest in the wood rot at the gazebo on the green, and I did check and have discovered that still is on our list of projects to get done in the town, so I will be able to reassure them about that. As you can imagine, Recreation Committee during the summer is a very active time for them, so they've been very busy. They had a string of concerts that were successful. Hopefully they will have more vendors next year, and the ice cream and the coffee people were very big successes for this year. They also we're talking now about the extended day program at the school, and it is going to be happening, and they've had a very aggressive turnout so far. A number of people have already signed up in the first week, so that they anticipate that that's going to be a fairly highly subscribed session. The swimming pool was a great success. The kids had a good time. Everybody was safe. So this fall there will be swimming lessons on Saturday in the morning only. There will not be any Tuesday or Thursday after school lessons as have happened in the past. They intend to start out small this year, having checked with other community pools in light of COVID. This seems to be the way that things are going. So they've worked out a way to do this safely and with adequate supervision to have the Saturday swim classes. They on the personnel side, they have they approved the addition of some sports leaders, and these are minimum wage, frequently high school or college students who are have been successfully passed their background checks, and it has been the Recreation Commission, like others, find that it's very difficult getting people to work these days. So they were glad to be able to put forward several names, and those won't be working immediately, but they will have them in their stable. The one interesting thing was the country club tent update. It turns out that the country club tent that they had anticipated to use, while it does have a very high-end frame, the canvas that covers it was a mess. It was stuck together and unusable, and cannot be repaired. And that seems to be, it seems that there were some differing opinions on this, but it does seem that this kind of canvas has some expiration date, or that it doesn't last forever, or perhaps it just hasn't been stored in the proper way. It's been many years, but the end result was that the canvas was stuck together, and it's apparently going to be too expensive to replace that canvas. So they're sort of looking at what needs to be done with that. I know they're working with Tony on that. The road race, they're working on sponsors. That will happen on October 2nd. The fitness center is open on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and Saturday and Sunday mornings. They have about 6 to 8 people attending each slot. It's been very popular, as have the tennis courts, where the permits are really busy, and court 3 has been used to great success for pickleball. And that pretty much, the other issue for the recreation department was the center gym, where there is no programming in the center gym for a couple of reasons. One is there's no custodian on duty at the times that they need to use the gym, and with COVID, obviously there's a lot of extra cleaning needs to be done. Also, there is no air exchange in the center gym, so that would prohibit it during the COVID problems. So that's been an issue. Nothing that they can really do about that. And that's pretty much it. That's the update from recreation. The other commissions did not meet in my other commission. So
Okay, thank you very much. Good update. Okay. We will wait till 7 o'clock for public comments, which is the next item. So we will move on to item 6, which is the Darling House apartment tenant lease with the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society, in addition to adding the cat, 3-legged cat, I guess it's a rescue, which is kind of nice. Jerry, I know you had a chance to review it. Maybe you'd be willing to just speak to it for me, please.
So this is the lease between the town and a tenant caretaker that is chosen by the Historical Society. The lease is the same exact document that was used in the prior years for the caretaker, with the exception of one minor change. It is acceptable as far as the legal terms are concerned, and we need the board's approval to have Beth sign the lease right after, in the next few days.
Could I just ask you, what was the change? I forgot.
So the change was in who pays the water bill. In the past, the town has been paying the water bill. This lease limits the town's exposure for paying the water bill to $275 annually, which has some history to it, which is just too complicated to explain, but it does limit our exposure for that bill.
Okay.
So that's it.
Great. All right. Anyone have any questions for Jerry on this? Having looked it over. Okay, I will well, go ahead, Sheila, sorry.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So just so that I understand this, so this lease is between the town and the tenant. It's basically a sublease that the Historical Society awards to the tenant. Is that how it works, Jerry?
This is a direct lease between the town and the tenant. The town has a separate agreement, I think one agreement, maybe 2 agreements, with the Historical Society, which defines the role of the Historical Society, the history of the Historical Society. And this is only the tenant is chosen by the Historical Society. The Historical Society has certain tasks that the tenant performs in consideration of getting what I assume is a very reasonable rental amount, $1,000 a month. So they have that relationship directly with the tenant. And this is, the town is the landlord, owner of the property, and these two individuals are the tenant. The lease has nothing to do with the Historical Society.
Okay, right. So just so that I understand it, it's the Board of Selectmen's relationship with the society with regard to the care of all the buildings, completely separate document than this. There's no connection between the two as far as the town is concerned. Is that right?
Correct.
Great. And so I'm hoping that it maybe in a future meeting, we can invite the Historical Society to talk with us as we saw that list of items that need to be repaired in those outbuildings. I'm very eager to hear more about how we're going to be planning for that. Make sure we get the funding that we need to take care of all the buildings. So that's great. Thank you.
I did have a conversation with Alexia yesterday, and they are planning to attend the October meeting. So
Great.
that'd be a good time to ask the questions. Okay.
So
Okay.
this is a one-year lease, Jerry?
13 months.
Oh, that's unusual.
Yeah, it's unusual. They wanted the extra month. They wanted to go through the end of October of next year.
I see. Okay.
I have a question, Jerry. If the Historical Society finds this tenant problematic, do they have the right to ask you to break the lease?
No. If the tenant defaults on any of the provisions under the lease, we certainly can move to have the tenant removed, or what other relief we want. But this does not say that for whatever reason the Historical Society feels that the tenant shouldn't be there anymore, the town has to evict them. This is just
Well, there are certainly a long litany of rules that the tenant has to follow. So,
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? So I'd entertain a motion to approve this. I can't because I have to sign it, so I don't want to authorize myself.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any corrections, changes, additions? Other questions? Okay, hearing none, I would ask you to raise your hand if you approve, please. 6 hands, unanimous. Thank you, guys. All right, that's all set. Moving on to item 7. We had a proposal, we had a further presentation from Arbor Haven last week, I believe. It seems like it was just last week, right? September 1st. And got the Q&A from the Board of Selectmen done. And I think probably the next steps, there seems to be, I'm hearing from a lot of folks that they would like to have an opportunity to, most of the public, to have the opportunity to have a meeting and hear more about it. So my first thought is I would like to encourage the Arbor Haven, give a list of the appropriate boards and commissions and have them make the time to go out and meet and greet one-on-one with the boards and commissions. And then number 2, I think it would be appropriate for us to schedule a public meeting where the public can come out. We have to do it virtually, unfortunately, as we can't have, several hundred people in a room right now. But I would like to try to schedule that if the board agrees. So both of those things. So I guess I'm just seeking consensus to try to move forward with both of those things. The public will have a good opportunity, and maybe we have to do 2. I just don't know. We'll see how long it takes. And finding a night when there are no meetings in town is horrendous, but we will schedule something, and I can let you guys know. And also encouraging the Arbor Haven folks to go and meet with various boards and commissions. Anyone have any objections to scheduling both of those as the next steps?
I would just like to add, Beth, this is not
Okay.
this public meeting or session that's going to be specifically designed for the public to have an opportunity to ask questions of Arbor. Is not a replacement for the special town meeting if the Board of Selectmen chooses to move forward with the proposal under the charter. If the Board of Selectmen does want to do that, then we have to schedule a special town meeting. And in the past, we adjourned when we had this issue on the sale of real estate, we adjourned the special town meeting to have the question of whether the town should sell the property placed on a ballot, a referendum ballot. At the special town meeting, we usually do explain what the proposal is again, and there could be the opportunity for the public to have further questions. So there will not be a shortage of the public's opportunity to ask questions. There could be, if you choose to have this public session within the next few weeks, that's number one. And for sure, if you move forward with the proposal, you must have a special town meeting to allow people to have further comments. So, and they're going to be going to the boards and commissions.
Sure. Okay. So is everyone comfortable with that, or questions or comments?
I'm questioning why it is that a developer is setting our agenda rather than the board deciding what we should be doing with the property in terms of, it does seem to me if it's the choice of the board to develop property, and that's an open question that we really have sort of short-circuited in this particular process, wouldn't it be a leadership issue to actually make that decision and then send out a request for proposals so that the town would have an opportunity to perhaps see many different proposals, choosing the best, choosing the ones that are most favorable for the town if development were the issue? And if development isn't what we as a board are looking for, why are we sort of moving this along or letting them move it along without the board having actually stood up and said, yeah, this is the leadership that we think we should be going toward? It just seems to me that this is just another, somebody coming forward. And I don't know that we should encourage a full process if we ourselves haven't made a decision about this.
Anyone else have any comments on that?
So I think I would like the opportunity for the public to receive a presentation and ask questions so that the board has more information to then consider a further step. I think I understand that this is simply a public presentation, not a meeting of the Board of Selectmen, not endorsed by the Board of Selectmen. It is simply to gauge public opinion, help the developer maybe understand ways in which they can make their proposal more in keeping with the sentiment of the public. But it's a real way for the Board of Selectmen to kind of gauge, is the community interested or is the community not interested? And so I would like to see us ask for a presentation and get that public input, because I'm not sure how the community feels. I'd like to know better. So I think it's helpful, and it doesn't commit the board one way or the other to have it be presented. That's my opinion.
And keep in mind, David, the proposal can't go forward. The board has to, at some point, the board has to vote on having a special town meeting and moving this forward. That happens. The proposal can't go very far without that happening. So the board has the ultimate say and will have the ultimate say at the time you're presented with the issue of whether to have a special town meeting. That's the board's decision as to whether they want to proceed with this proposal, because if it's passed at referendum, then the town has to sell the property to these developers or any other developer that comes forward for that matter.
I understand this. I understand those issues. And my concern is that I think that the process, the way it's happening, if we had 20 developers standing in line and other people who had other ideas and people who wanted to have it just open space and parks and everything else, at some point we have to be exhibiting some leadership in this, not just simply sitting back and waiting for people to come into town and make an offer, because that's certainly the worst way for us to go about developing, would be just to wait for people to come in and make an offer. If we want people to make offers, we should decide that that's what we want to do. And if the town doesn't like it, they'll let us know. But this does seem to me to be a bit of a, because I think every time we send this flag up the pole to the town, you get some reaction, but people sort of assume that the board is pushing this on to them for the next step. And I don't feel like we're at all there. I mean,
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
seem to me
yeah.
that it doesn't seem to me that we've made any decision about supporting the concept of development.
Well, we can get some input. I sort of disagree that just sitting back and waiting. I mean, we've had over the last, I've been on the Board of Selectmen for over 10 years, and I think we have had folks come forward and they are still coming forward. We have another developer that's reached out to us. And I think it's just fine to have a public meeting and listen to folks and what they think about it. I think it would be inappropriate for us to make a decision to just do an RFP without entertaining at least this proposal. So I'm taking it forward. And I don't think that they're driving me at all. I think we as a board are driving this forward. It's our decision. Anyone else have any opinion on this? Is it the
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I had one for Jerry and I had one for Tony. And I'm going to ask Tony first. As part of the proposal, presentation, the indication was there would be a tax revenue gain to the town. And I wanted to ask Tony how the town is charged by the Amity Board of Education for their students. How are we charged for our students in the Amity budget?
We're charged based on the average daily membership of the population at a certain point in time, which is then calculated for each town and divided appropriately. So it's a percentage of the average daily membership of the students. So that's the Amity portion.
Right. So the Amity portion then would be the entire budget divided by the percentage of students that each town has.
Correct.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So that means that the fixed cost in the Amity system would be also divided, which means that the per head cost would include that portion, percentage-wise, of the fixed costs.
That's correct.
Okay. So on a per head, using the entire budget and looking at how many students we have, what are we paying per head for each student in the Amity system?
I don't have that off the top of my head here. I could certainly look into that. I don't know it off.
Well, what's our portion of how much do we pay to that budget? The budget's 15 million.
Yeah, our budget is got right here. This past year was 15.7 million.
Okay.
So let's say 16 million, a little over.
Yep.
So take me a few minutes. I could probably calculate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, while you're figuring that out, let me ask Jerry another question. Jerry, one other question. So the TPZ has changed the rules about zoning, and they're now allowing two-family houses where there's sewer and water, and they're also allowing multifamily houses where there's sewer and water. But they also make the statement that in Zone A, the footprint can't be more than 15% of the total area. Is that correct?
No, I don't know that specifically, but I'd have to check. I'd have to check with Mary
That's
Ann.
in that publication, that chart that the TPZ put out. So my question is, if you're only allowed a footprint of 15% on, say, an acre is 44,000 square feet, so 6,600 square feet, and you can put 15 units on, according to this, on 6,600 square feet. Unless you make the units can only be about 800 square feet to do that. And we have a 2.5-story height regulation.
This proposal is less than 15 units per acre. The rule is, first of all, David, you raised at the last time that whether you need a zone change. And I talked to Mary Ann at great length. I talked to Mary Ann, Dominic Thomas on the call, who's the head of the housing committee. There is no question unequivocally that this type of housing in their proposal, all three types of housing do not require a zone change. It's permissible under the statute, and that's the big change in our zoning regulation. So The question, I do not, and you're allowed on a residential lot, you're allowed, that it does not have to have sewer and water. You are still allowed 2 units on every acre that can sustain one house on an acre and a half, on every lot that can sustain one house on an acre. That
Right.
sewer and
Yep.
water are irrelevant for those types of housing. You've
Yeah,
got to
based on
show
the site plan, I know that, right.
You've got to show that you have adequate sewer, you have
Based on
adequate
approval
water.
of the site plan, right, that's, that, yeah, okay.
Exactly. So for the country club, because it does have access to sewer and water, you get into the higher level of housing, of
Right, I get that.
family housing. And that is where they are proposing to have the, I think, 40 some odd middle priced multifamily housing. And
Right.
that is on, I don't remember how many acres, but it does comply to the T. And we can check this out later, but they've told me that it does comply. Mary Ann has looked at it. It does comply to the T with the current zoning regulations. Just as last time I said, you do not require a zone change. I'm very confident that their proposal fulfills all the obligations under the current zoning regulation. But we can get you backup documentation to show you. It's a little complicated. I got to admit, it's complicated because our zoning regulations are very complicated to try and determine what is allowed in each different zone. So I can get you all that information clearly laid out.
Yeah, well, they did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job of laying it out in this new document that they put out.
Mary Ann was supposed to get a memo to me tonight, and we just sort of, I think she forgot about it and I forgot about it, that says you do not need a zone change for this kind of housing at the country club any longer, which, as you may recall, was one of the major issues that people were speaking against any of the proposals that came before the town in the past.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, any
don't
other?
you have those numbers yet?
Yeah, so the town's portion of the 21-22 budget, which is based on the average daily membership of the October 1st of 2020, is 32.23% of the budget. So they're if you look at their budget document, they have a pure pupil expenditure of roughly a little over $20,000.
Okay, 20,000 per pupil.
Yeah, so if it's on in their budget document, you could you say 20,000 per pupil, correct?
Okay, so thank you. So Arbor Haven was claiming that we're only paying 12,000 per pupil, and they're way off. They're off by over 50%.
I don't think they were proposing 12. I think you said we
No,
spent
no,
12.
no, no, that was in there. You have to read the document, Jerry. Which
It may be
which
in
I
there,
did.
but-
You look at their proposal and they say it's 12, they average 2.2 students per house. And they said that there would be, 100.
Wasn't that for Beecher and not Amity, or was it for both?
It was a
Well,
general statement about their education costs.
It was for student cost. I mean,
So it
I
might be,
brought up a feature, but what if you look at Amity? Amity charges us differently. So you can't use that $12,500 per head when you're trying to figure out what the profit is going to be. I just wanted to see what that number was. I thought it was about 18, but it's more like 20. Okay, thank you, Tony.
Anyone else, Paul, Joe, on perhaps moving forward with new steps?
Well, we do have to bring this proposal to the town. It's up to the residents of the town whether they want to entertain such a proposal. I think we would be overstepping if we were to just decline this particular proposal. We've had other proposals come through and they've all gone through the commissions and town meeting process. And I think we owe it to these developers to give them the same exposure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Paul, please don't misunderstand me. I wasn't suggesting that we decline this particular offer. I was simply suggesting that to continue to go down this road every time is not the best kind of leadership that this town could have.
Okay,
I think to not go forward with this is not leadership, in my opinion, but just me. So we agree to disagree on that. Thank you. So would you like me to take a vote to anyone who's, someone could make a motion, please, to take the next steps for, to schedule a town, would it be a public session where folks could ask questions virtually and get a presentation from Arbor Haven, and then we'll try to find a night, and then additionally asking um, the Arbor Haven folks to go out to the boards and commissions in town. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I think we've had some discussion, but
Yeah, Beth, don't you think you should have the boards and commissions review this before it goes to the public? I mean, the order should be the boards and commissions and then the public?
well, depending on how we schedule it. And why is that, David? I'm curious.
Why is that?
Yeah,
So that basically the people who are running the town or advising those who run the town would have the input, and they could discuss it intelligently with the townspeople before.
well, we can try to do that. We have so many boards and commissions, this could take a year, but we'll try to schedule it because they're going to have to go on nights when the commissions meet. So we'll see.
You're not going to be able to have a referendum until we're through this COVID thing. So that's going to be a long time. And that's going to be the rate limiting step for that. So you do have time.
Okay.
I don't think these people are going.
Looking at the calendar, there's so many meetings in the next couple of months. We'll just do our best, but it may be that the public session cannot occur, this month or next month. We'll have to see. I'm going to shoot out some dates. I'll work with Jerry Shaw tomorrow on that. Okay, so we have a motion made and a second. I will call the question. All in favor of going forward with this, signify by raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Beth, I'm unclear on I'm just unclear on the motion. Is the intent of this motion to move directly to sending this to the town, or is it to go
No,
to the commission?
To schedule a special session where the townspeople can be invited virtually to ask questions and have a presentation from Arbor Haven. That's number one. And number two, to ask Arbor Haven folks to go to make arrangements to try to attend every board and commission meeting that they can get on the schedule for.
Yeah.
That's the motion, I hope. And I think Joe agrees. He seconded it.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye with raising your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And all opposed? Raise your hand, David Lober. Okay, it's a 5-1. Thank you.
So Beth, I just got an email from Mary Ann. She had forgotten to get it to me before. I just like
Okay.
paragraph. I'd like to read it just so David understands it and just for the record. The
Certainly.
development area under consideration on the country club property is located in Zone A, in an area which is outside of the public water supply watershed. Under the new regulations enacted by the TPZ permitting multifamily housing is allowed with a special permit in Zone A areas which are outside of the public watershed. Therefore, the development of the country club property can proceed under the new regulations without a zone change.
That actually, I understand that. That actually wasn't the question. The question had to do with the density and the 15% footprint. That was really my question.
Last week, you said you read the regulations differently, that it didn't.
Well, what I read last week was the article that was published in the newspaper, and then I went back and read the actual regulation, and it was a little bit different than what was published in the newspaper. The newspaper was incomplete. Let's put it that way.
So it's clear now. So that's great.
It is. We still have the 15%, but thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, it's not yet 7. We have 5 minutes. Want to start the administrative officers report? That's the next item, correct? Go ahead, Tony.
Okay,
Thank you. Item 1 is the monthly report. Item A, sorry.
so I have for you the preliminary year-end report for 2021. Before we get into the year-end report, I just want to say that the budget for 2021 had a lot of question marks at the beginning of the year. There were question marks from the Board of Education. Were they going to have a big deficit? There were question marks from some of our departments, Recreation, Human Services. Was there enough in the budget? Were they going to need supplies? Were we going to have, there was a question on revenues. Were we going to collect taxes? Were we going to see a drop off? There were a lot of question marks that we had going into the year. So I just wanted to give that backdrop for the fiscal year. I think the best way to understand the year end is to actually look at the spreadsheet that has the departments listed. You will notice that if you look at revenues, the way the schedule works is you have the revenues minus your expenditures gives you essentially your excess of revenues over expenditures, or your operating loss or a gain there. And then you'll see the other financing sources, which is mainly the designation of fund balance, which is minus 400,000. So you can see how but you budget for a contribution from fund balance, but it's never actually, it just comes off of your fund balance if you don't need the funds. So if you look at our revenues, you'll notice that our property taxes are pretty much on budget, slight surplus of $14,000. Our department charges are also pretty much on budget, just a very slight surplus of $38,000. There are some large swings in that, including a deficit in our transfer station of just under 100,000, but we made up for that in surpluses in town clerk fees and building permits and in rec fees. So we had some deficits in one area and surpluses in another. They pretty much canceled each other. You'll also notice that our investment income was down about $140,000 compared to budget, but we received grant funds we didn't anticipate in $148,000. So those pretty much canceled each other also, leaving us with a surplus in revenues of about $50,000. So that's 0.1% of the total revenue budget. So it was pretty close to the budget this year. In our expenditures, you'll see their expenditure surplus is $600,000, and a lot of that comes from the wages and trying to guess which program revenue or which programs were going to take place. You'll notice there's a surplus in the building official of $30,000. That's mainly due to part-time wages. So even though we did well with permit revenue, the building official was very efficient in his work, and we were still able to have a surplus in that account. There was a surplus in human services of $80,000. That was one of the major surpluses, and that had to do with the fact that the department had budgeted for programs to start in January, and they did not start. Some of their programs didn't start till much later in the year, and some didn't start at all to the level that they thought they would in the budget. So as a result, they turned back that money to the town. The library, it was the same issue. They have turned back $34,000, mainly due to timing of staff and programs related to COVID. So the programs did not come back as soon as were anticipated in both those departments. The Woodbridge Board of Education is returning $64,000, which is a big difference from a 8 months ago. We were anticipating a major deficit. So that was also good news for us. And when you have surpluses in salary accounts, you tend to have a surplus in benefits, because a lot of the benefits are tied to salaries, whether it's FICA or Medicare or healthcare or other retirement, or a lot of them are tied to salaries. So we had some surpluses there. There was also a drop off in private duty at the police department, which is, there were revenue associated with that of a $60,000 deficit in revenue. And there's also a surplus in benefits because we collect fees for private duty. It's an administrative fee, which covers the benefits related to the cost of a police officer. So not only do we charge for the salary charged, but we also charge for benefits and for an admin charge for time that it takes for us to administer the program. And so at the end result is a actual excess of revenues over expenditures of $200,000 this year, which is about 0.4% of expenditures. And that will leave us with a fund balance of $6.7 million, or about 13.5%.
Thank you,
Any
Tony.
questions or anything I can help with?
Okay, so our fund balance keeps going up. Do you have a number in mind where we're going to stop adding to the fund balance and start returning it to the taxpayers?
So that's a more of a policy question for the budget process. I can tell you that we have a minimum. We try to stay above 12%, and but if you look at around the state and around the country, some places are 20%, 25%. It's not unheard of to see municipalities at 15%, 20%, 25%. And so it's just, that's more of a policy question. Connecticut tends to be a little less because we have property taxes, which are a more stable source of revenue. So that's definitely a question that the Board of Selectmen and Finance should discuss. And, each year you have in your budget the $400,000 designation from fund balance. So should you want to stop contributing, or in fact take a little from fund balance, you can always increase that to 500,000 or 600,000. That's sort of how you control your fund balance level. That's one way. The other way is to use it for a major capital expenditure, although I don't tend to like that as much as using it through the budget process, because then it goes through the process, and that's, I think, a clearer way to do it.
So we need to be above what, 8% to get preferential bonding rate?
No, it's not necessarily a percent. We're at 12%. I would say you probably you want to be at least 10% to 12%. I think would be preferential. I mean, just a percentage of fund balance alone is not in and of itself lead to a bonding rate. There's a whole host of things that are looked at, including your tax collection rate, your grand list, your budget approvals, your management policies. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. So if any one of those is not doing as great, they'll look at all the others: your debt percentage, the percentage and debt load, your pension obligations, your OPEB obligations. All those are factored into it, the bonding percentage.
But fund balance is part of that.
Fund balance is definitely part of it, and it's a major part of it. I think that the issue with fund balance is you want to make sure it doesn't start to decline. That's usually when you start getting,
That's a red flag, is it?
Red flags, yes. Because if you start to rely on it to fund operating costs, that's a red flag. It's sort of like using your savings account to pay your bills. Once you start to,
we've never done that.
No, we've never done that. That's other towns that happens. That's why I mentioned it.
I had one more question. We've put solar panels on a lot of the public buildings. Have we actually seen a decline in our electricity bills because of that? I mean,
we have solar panels on the library, right, Betsy? A very small array, though, I think. And we have not yet installed them on Public Works and on the firehouse. Those are in process. We did do some electric improvements, which was also a loan program, which was a zero interest loan, which I think has another year maybe. And then we'll start to see a decline in our electric rates. The program used the savings in electricity to pay for the project. And then, so you try to, even the cash flow. And then once the project is paid off, the rates will decline. So I think they've been another year and a half to those, Betsy, if you do recall.
Don't we have panels on one of the schools as well, or am I mistaken there?
There are panels at the Beecher School.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And Amity.
Oh,
And then-
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll take a pause in the action and remember that we're on, next item will be tax refunds once we come back. And I will ask Mrs. Shaw, number one, are there any written emails for public comments?
No, I have not received any.
Thank
As of
you.
4 o'clock today.
Thank you. And is there anyone that would like to give public comment? Please let them in.
I have one person. Let me see what they're here for.
Okay, thanks.
Just listening in.
Okay, no public
No,
comments.
no public comment.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. All right, back to tax refunds, item B. You have a copy in your packet of the total refunds for September 2021, totaling $13,445.23. There are no personal property refunds, 2 real estate refunds, and motor vehicle refunds, sorry. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the total refunds for September in your packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, please raise your hand signifying approval. Thank you. 6 hands. Moving on. Funding requests. On the page. Okay, the first one is line item transfer number 2122-02 in the amount of 23,120. Maybe you'd want to explain this, Tony. I think it's just a grant moving from
Correct.
one in between, right? Who got a good grant here. So
Yep. So we received a grant of 23,120 from the Cable Advisory Council, which the WGA TV budget uses for various improvements and programs that PUA's manages, and she does all the work actually to apply for the grant. So she did another great job. And this line item transfer will transfer the use of the grant, because the grant's not in the budget process because we're not really sure when you get it or how much you can get it for. So this will transfer those monies to various line items for improvements to the WGA TV program. One being a smart caption, which would enable closed caption on live programming. And a second would be secure internet access for the center gym. And then finally, some conference and professional development.
wonderful. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer number 2122-02 in the amount of 23,120. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions? More for Tony than for me. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's see what else we've got here. Is that the only one?
That's it.
Okay, and the next one is a bid award. And this is an RFP that administer the town's small cities grant program for housing rehabilitation loan program. Tony, maybe you want to give a little
Sure.
on this. Thank you.
Back in probably starting in 2004, 2007, 2010, we applied 3 times for a small cities grant. And it was for housing rehabilitation loan program. Basically, the way the program works is the state, it's actually HUD funds that's funneled through the state, are awarded to communities, which received 3, 4, 5, 6, about $800,000. And we have probably $500,000 to $600,000 out there in loans to income eligible residents who do certain eligible improvements to their homes, like roofs and furnace or water line improvement, water quality improvements, certain eligible upgrades or improvements to their homes to allow the, these improvements so people can stay in their homes and so that it improves the housing stock in the community. And the way it works is it's an interest-free loan that's on title for the house. And once the house changes title, it sells or changes title to someone else, the town is paid back. The money goes back into the revolving loan and is loaned out to someone else. So we have, I think we have Pat Crisco, our tax collector, administers this for us, and we have maybe 10 to 15 applications, loans out in the community. And as they come back, we'd like to have sent back out to other residents. And so we have a firm that helps us. Our previous firm is retired. And so we had to go out for an RFP, and we would like to award it to A&E Services Group. Principal of that firm was worked for a previous firm that we used for many, many years. And we're confident that he knows all the grant regulations very well, which is the big challenge here, is to make sure that all of the regulations are followed properly. And it could be quite complicated. Not only will they help with the grant regulations, but they'll actually help go out to RFP for the work on the homes to make sure that the whole work is done properly and that the residents represent, the town, and that the work is done so that the work is, quality work and in accordance with the was bid. So that's the program, and that's what the consultant would help us with.
Okay. So you need an approval from the board to accept or to
Correct.
award.
We received two bids, two proposals, I should say, and A&E was the proposal that had the most experience. Their rates were reasonable, more reasonable, and they had more Connecticut municipalities as clients. So.
Thank you. All right. So would someone like to make a motion that we award this to A&E Services Group as described in the memo? Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Any other discussion, questions, or comments on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Sheila's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Speak up.
Sheila's got a question. Tony, I was wondering, so with this vendor, is the vendor the person that a member of the public might approach to find out? I can't help but notice there's a few houses in town that look like they need some roof work.
No, actually, so the person they would approach would be Pat Crisco.
Okay, so we've seen it at the town hall, right? It's a local program. These folks just help out. Okay.
Correct, right. And Pat is the day-to-day contact. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because if anybody knows of anyone who would be income eligible, and it's on our website, I believe, the applications, and you can speak with Pat. I think it's a good opportunity to get work done on your home, and
yeah, and we want people to use this money because it just
correct. It's revolving, so the idea is to put it back into the community as soon as we can.
Right.
Great. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. One question for Tony. Do we pay for the administration of this?
No, it comes out of the grant funds. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So it's the homeowner that pays the loan back, Tony?
So the loan is paid back once the house changes title. So that one of the things that we have to do, one of the steps in the program, is to make sure that the applicant has equity in the home. It's not always a perfect scenario, but we want to make sure that the applicant doesn't have if the house is valued at 400, we want to make sure there's not a second mortgage on for 500 or 350. We want to make sure there's enough equity in the home in order to be able to eventually pay back the program. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but usually there's enough controls in place where the program will get paid back. I think only one time we didn't get paid out of 15 or so applicants.
But it only has to be paid back when title changes.
That's correct, and it's interest free.
Wow. Okay.
But the income requirements are pretty stringent. In terms of you have your income level has to be below a certain amount in order to even qualify for the program.
I see.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a first, we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yes, you do.
thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. Please, if you vote to approve, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, now, moving on, American Rescue Plan Act. We'd like to, Tony's going to give us an update on where we are with this, also known as ARPA.
Thank you. And this, we hope this to be a regular monthly update, which will get more specific as we go along. But we continue to learn more, and Betsy is very instrumental in helping figure out this program. And so I'll ask her to chime in at any point if she wants to make any comments. But we've both been to many webinars and meetings about this. And so, as you know, we have $2.6 million in funding for the town. The funding needs to be committed by 2024, the end of 2024, spent by the end of 2026. So there are several categories which include public health expenditures, negative economic impacts caused by the pandemic. They're all pandemic related. Replace lost public sector revenue. A lot of that has to do with not necessarily revenue that we collect, but if you have tourism revenue or parking fees or revenues that were specifically impacted on a large scale by the pandemic. That's sort of what that one is designed for. Premium pay for essential workers, invest in sewer, water, or broadband, or some other. There's an other category. If you have an other, you have to identify a problem caused by COVID and why this is a solution. So we've sort of identified a few areas where we're sort of thinking there are maybe some possibilities. And so I just wanted to mention a couple of those just to sort of start you thinking about this. And one is sort of improve outdoor spaces to allow residents to gather in outdoor spaces which would still be a safe way to get people together. And so we were brainstorming ideas on how to improve the Grove, and which is sort of intersects between the library, human services, and the old firehouse. And it could be a space that's easily used by a lot of different departments. There was some tents that we have sort of a more permanent space there. Assistance to the business district for marketing and events, which is relates to the negative economic impacts. And this was mentioned earlier, I think by David. Add one building improvement that the town side is allowed to do would be HVAC improvements. And so that would be HVAC improvements specifically to the center building, which has none. And I think you mentioned that in your rec report. And so one thing we were thinking was possibly to have some HVAC improvements at the center building, the senior center, the gym, particularly because that can be used as a shelter. And finally, there's two more here. Maintain and upgrade some of our playgrounds and our parks, which is another response to COVID in terms of bringing people outdoors, but keeping people together. And finally, another category would be to possibly allow for some sort of financial support for the Food and Fuel Fund and or other nonprofit groups. So those are some of the general categories that we were thinking of. We will come back to you next month with more details. Betsy is going to look into the marketing and events idea for the business district and see, and also get some more information on some of these issues. And part of this process will be public outreach and participation for the public to be involved in how we use the funds. There's a lot of information on this. If anybody's interested in reading, there are volumes of information on this particular program. Betsy, I don't know if you have any other comments.
No, I think that sums it up.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, or if you have any ideas or any comments, just let us know. We can look into it for you. Sheila?
Could you send out a link on that, please?
Sure.
For the voluminous material,
Absolutely.
4 over, great, thank you.
Okay.
When you were mentioning the center building, it would be great if we could do something with the HVAC so that we could use it further, because even if it's not done in the immediate short term, long term use of the building, we got to have good air quality. But then it got me thinking a little bit about the use of, like, where recreation has their fitness facility there in the center building. If that's moving to the old firehouse, is there anything potentially with the old firehouse to make that available to the public? Would that fit under these categories in any way?
I think that some of the building improvements have to do a lot of Betsy. In terms of building improvements, we've seen mostly HVAC improvements, not like
It has to tie into improving health outcomes and health disparities and specific programs due to COVID, like if you're hosting a vaccination site or a testing site. You don't want it to be in a spot where there's little to no ventilation.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe the movement of the fitness facility from the center building where there's not good airflow to a location that you have good airflow, if that might somehow qualify, because I would think that there are some people who are staying away from the fitness center due to the concerns about the airflow in that building.
you could probably do the you may be able to cover the ventilation cost of the old firehouse should you move it there. That's
That
a
would be great.
possibility, I suppose, but not the rest of the cost.
Yeah,
You would not be able to do the rest of the cost.
make that building.
Earlier that the rec program, David Vogel mentioned that the rec program is not using the gym because of the ventilation system. It would seem that that would be an application for those improvements.
Yep,
Absolutely.
absolutely. That's on our list. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone
Okay.
else?
Thank you.
And
We'll
you
send
can
out a link.
Turn the golf course into a park.
Ah. Anyone else have any other comments or questions for Tony? And speaking of others, is there any other Tony?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on, the Assistant Administrative Officer's report, Betsy.
Good evening. I have 3 event requests for you all tonight. They should be in your packet. The first one is from the Boy Scouts. They are hoping to hold a mum sale on the Triangle, bless you, Beth, where they usually hold their spring sale. They're looking to do a mum sale on the 26th of this month from 9:30 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Anybody have any questions about that event?
Yep. Okay. Any questions for Betsy on this? I guess hearing none. Go ahead.
Motion to approve that request.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Hearing none, please raise your hand if you approve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paul?
Yes, I approve.
Okay. Thank you. That one passes. Okay, Betsy, you're up again. Thank you.
So our next event request is from Woodbridge Together, which is a new organization organized by Amity High School student Tina Berland. This will be the 2nd annual Luminaria event. If you recall, they did one last March on the anniversary of the date when schools and everything else in Connecticut shut down. People say it was very, very stunning to see, and she's quite early, obviously, but planning ahead, and she's looking to do a repeat of that event.
Yeah, it was lovely last year, even though it was cold. I would recommend anyone attending. It was absolutely beautiful. So I will move this forward. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone have any comments or questions for Betsy on this?
Betsy, what was the date on that? You mentioned it, but I didn't catch it.
That would be March 12, and I believe it's a Saturday.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor signify by raising your hand. Paul? Yeah, there you are. Good. Paul?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. It might be my computer's got gremlins or something. He just goes in and out. Sorry.
Mine too.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Keeps freezing. The last request is for an event being organized by the town's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And this is an event that is a partnership with a few other events. It would be immediately following the Recreation Road Race on Saturday, October 2. And it is a partnership with the library's One Book, One Town selection, which is a book called American Like Me. And it's a series of essays about how first and second generation immigrants feel about being and becoming American. And so the event is really a celebration of Woodbridge. There's been about 40 different organizations invited. There would be food trucks, community organizations would have information tables, and also possible performances based depending on the organization.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Betsy? Hearing none, I will move acceptance of this event as described in your packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Goes Paul again.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you so much, Betsy. Do you have update on coming events and also other?
Yes. So this Saturday will be the town's first craft fair. It is the last second Saturday event. It's scheduled from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the library parking lot, and it will follow the format of the tag sale held in June. In addition to the craft vendors, there will be the Silver Sands pizza truck, Cafe Rebelde with coffee and pastries, and there will also be lawn games, a community art project, free arts and craft supplies, and also watercolor painting supplies for people to use while they're at the event. So it should be a very fun, family-friendly event. I'm also working on trying to organize and coordinate different Halloween events. Last year, because of the pandemic, people pivoted at the last moment to try and do things that were COVID safe to still celebrate the event. And there were a lot of really creative things that worked out. So as you know, the fire department is holding their drive-through truck or treat event on the 30th. I am trying to confirm with Beecher that they're planning on doing the Halloween foods. And the business district is working to organize a trick or treat on the morning of Saturday, October 23rd. That's the week before Halloween. And it's the same day as the last free concert in the business district at Coachman Square. So the trick or treating would precede the concert, and hopefully that would be a very fun family event for kids and families. And later that afternoon, the Willows is tentatively planning on doing their second drive-through Halloween event. They decorated their drive and their lawn last year and had a lot of families come through, similar to what the fire department did. So they're also reaching out to neighboring businesses to see if others want to coordinate with them on that. Lastly, I just want to let you know that the town-owned bike route signs have been installed along our bike routes thanks to the crowdfunding campaign and matching grant from Sustainable CT. And we are waiting on the state signs on the state roads so that the loop is actually a loop. Right now, these signs are just on the town roads, so it is slightly confusing. But they are coming, I'm told. And
Do we have a date on that? I mean, you're driving on your bike and all of a sudden you're on a state road. Where do I go?
I don't have a date, but I'm going to keep pestering them, and I'm hopeful that it will happen this fall. And as mentioned earlier in the meeting about solar, we are still working to get solar installed on the roofs at the new firehouse and also the Public Works Garage. And I just heard last week from the Green Bank, who's coordinating this program, that there have been some delays due to supply chain shortages. So the new timeline is that the project would start in November, and they hope that it will finish this spring. So that is coming.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Betsy? Okay, we will move on to item number 10, which is acknowledging receipts of the town clerk's report. They're both in your project. Your packet. I will move acceptance of both. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Paul, say aye or nay. Am I missing him?
Aye,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you very much. No worries. Thank you. All right. The next is approval of the minutes. First set of minutes to approve are the minutes of the Board of Selectmen elect. That was us. Wow, this was from June 23rd, 2021. I'll make a motion that they are approved. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. And any comments or questions or edits, changes? I think there are none. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, or your any hand, I don't care. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paul?
Aye,
Thank you. All right, so those are done. That was a yeoman's job, Mrs. Shaw. Thank you. The next set of minutes are we had tabled some minutes from July 28th, 2021. I guess to get the discussion started, I will make a motion that we approve. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Any comments or further questions about those minutes as they were presented? So they will go forward as they were presented. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
aye,
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we've got 6. Thank you. And lastly, the regular meeting of August 11th, 2021. The minutes are in your packet. I move acceptance of those minutes as written and presented. Is there a second? Joe Crisco, thank you. Any edits, comments, changes on the minutes of August 11th? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Paul?
aye.
Thank you. All righty then. Moving on to item 12, Town Council's report. Turn it over to Jerry. Jerry, I have one question for you before you start. The cell tower update. Someone called me this afternoon about the sites that are being tested by the crane. Is it 2 or is it 3?
Sites that, well, I think there's 2.
Okay.
There is the site that is presently the subject of Verizon's application that's on off of Newton. And then there's a site that on town property, I think it's 11 Meeting House or 4 Meeting House Lane. I think it's 11. It's right behind the Public Works Department. And this is that's property owned by the town.
Okay, thank you.
As far as I know, they were talking about 3, but the site at the police department, the tower at the police department has some issues that we really can't make that available to Verizon as a substitute for the Newton Road property.
Okay, thank you.
So Beth has mentioned the cell tower hearings before the siting council. There's another hearing coming up at the end of the month. Hopefully it finishes the application and the siting council will make a decision. The proponents, the neighbors have formed an organization. They've hired an attorney, they've hired an expert, as Beth said, and they are moving to try and have Verizon's application to put a cell tower on, I guess it's Soundview Newton Road, rejected. And what they're trying to show that there are other suitable locations within the town or adjacent to the town that would do just as well, if not better, and not disturb a highly dense residential neighborhood as they now propose. One of the few sites that have become that's become an issue in this hearing is the town-owned property at behind the Public Works Department. It seems like it's a good location because it is pretty much isolated from most residential homes. It's set back off Center Road behind Public Works. I've looked at it and it really does seem fairly remote. It's not that far away from the baseball fields that the kids play on and it's behind the tennis courts. So Beth has indicated and our attorneys have indicated to the neighbors that this is a possibility that the town would be willing to explore if the current application is denied. This may be a decent alternative site. We don't know for sure. It still may have problems and may not be acceptable. But we had presented this to Verizon way at the beginning of this process many months ago, and they've come back and said no, it was unacceptable because it didn't provide the same kind of coverage. The area was too far from the location that they need, or was too low to have adequate coverage that is needed in that area. Nevertheless, the homeowners have re-upped this proposal, this Meeting House Lane proposal, and we have said, I think Beth has said, and our attorneys have said at the hearing that we would be willing to consider this if it is feasible, and if the Board of Selectmen approves at some point in the future that this can go forward, and we can negotiate with Verizon to put a cell tower up there that will serve the area that has very little service. It's a Route 63, 67 intersection. So what the neighbors want to do is they want to do a test, and the test is scheduled for tomorrow. And what that means is they'll put a crane on Center Road or close to the property behind Public Works, and they'll do some testing. They'll hoist something up to see what kind of coverage you would get if there was a cell tower there. And we said, well, if you want to do it on town property, you'll have to give us an indemnity agreement and an insurance policy. And they have given us those two items. They were reviewed by our attorney, who signed off and said they were acceptable and they were in proper form. It's now up to the Board of I said we couldn't allow that to happen unless the Board of Selectmen voted to authorize them to perform this test tomorrow. So that is before you now, and if you so incline, they will go forward with it tomorrow to see whether it's a feasible site, and they'll present the results to the Siting Council at the next public hearing. I think I've covered most everything. I'm happy to answer questions, or if somebody wants to make a motion, they can make a motion.
Jerry, I had a quick question for you. I'm just glancing at the map there. It looks like 149 Center Road and 151 Center Road are the two parcels that are behind. It's not really Meeting House Lane, right? It's a Center Road address.
The Center Road, no, I think it's 11 Meeting House Road. I'm not really sure.
I think it's 15 Meeting House was clarified.
Yeah, 15 is the Public Works facility.
Yeah.
It's 15 Meeting House.
That's the address. It was clarified at the Siting Council meeting last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Discussion about exactly where it was, but that's where it is.
And the town owns that piece of property.
Right. Yeah. They own the piece where the ball fields are, and directly behind that, and then the part where the little choo-choo train park is, and directly behind that. Whereabouts are you? I guess maybe I should drive by when you're floating this crane, and I know for sure, right?
This I think is up the hill on the other side of the hill, on the other side of the baseball field. It's on the other side of the park. It's right. If you go to the tennis courts and you drive down that road that go right beyond the tennis courts that you use to get to the tennis courts, go further down, the road ends and becomes a dirt road, and there's some storage area. I think we use it for some kind of storage.
If you look at the map, that's definitely 149 Center Road.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, they're calling it 15 Meeting House.
All right, I was just trying to get a sense of where it was. So I'll make the motion to allow for this test, right?
Thank you.
The motion.
I'll second that. Any other questions for Jerry about this? And they're going to go to the other site as well. Do we have to include that in the motion? 2 sites,
Oh,
right?
that's private
No, that's
property.
private. Never mind. You're right. they're gonna go up onto Soundview.
I've told them that if they do that, they might have to call, they should call the chief of police because we have regular ordinances that require police officers to be outside construction sites on our town roads. So they probably have done that, and there may be a police officer stationed on Soundview when they do the test.
Should we have someone check with Frank in the morning to make sure? Or is that up to them?
Somebody can give them a call. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I told them. I think we specifically told them that that's what they needed to do.
Okay. Just to be on the safe side.
And Frank might have said it's not necessary. It's on a dead end street. It's not going to affect traffic, and it might be okay. But they should have gone to him and asked what was needed.
Mrs. Shaw, do you think you could do that for us in the morning just to double check?
Yes, I'll take care of that first thing.
Thank you very much. Just to be on the safe side to make sure our motion is correct. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions on this? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. Okay, Jerry, next is the RFP update.
So this again comes back to the country club. A couple months ago, a group of residents asked to meet with Beth and Tony. I sat in on a meeting, and these residents wanted to formulate an RFP for the country club, for a portion of the country club that basically consists of the old clubhouse and surrounding, I don't remember whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 15 acres, but a parcel of land to be used for a banquet center / restaurant, maybe hotel, some kind of a facility to hold events. And they wanted the town to formulate an RFP to see if anybody was interested in those specific uses for the town property. And we indicated that Tony would work with 1 or 2 of them to see if he can come up with a reasonable RFP. And we go to the Board of Selectmen and ask for approval of the Board of Selectmen to do the RFP. Shortly after that, and even at that meeting, we indicated to this group that we expected to have a proposal come in from Arbor. And if it did, that would go to the Board of Selectmen. Arbor's proposal came in about a week or 2 weeks after that meeting, and we've been focusing on that proposal. And we are the RFP is in draft form, and depending on what happens with the Arbor proposal, I think the Board of Selectmen may want to go forward with the RFP, but I have no idea what you want to do. I just wanted to bring it to you for informational purposes.
Anyone have any questions on that? I know that the proponents of the RFP were quite anxious to have us send it out, and but as you said, I think that, I don't know, anyone have any opinion on this? Should we just hold off? It's I think Jerry's recommendation is to just wait until we
keep in mind again, and David, this is, I know you would have this question. Any kind of commercial use at the country club would require a zone change, because right now it's zoned for residential. So whereas now you don't need a zone change for multifamily, you would need a zone change for commercial uses.
Clubhouse is zoned as a banquet hall.
Banquet hall is commercial use. It's not residential.
We're talking about the RFP for the clubhouse, their ballot proposal, right?
Yes.
That wouldn't be the zoning change because it's already zoned that way. It's already zoned as a banquet hall.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
No, it had a banquet hall. How could it have it without zoning, Jerry?
Zoned as a country club. We have a specific country club zone that requires a minimum number of acres, requires that it be adjacent to town-owned property. The country club was operating there under the country club zone, just as the way Oak Lane operates its country club.
Yep.
If you want to put a country club up there, then you have no zone change.
Yep.
If you want to put any kind of other commercial establishment that is not a country club and there's specific requirements for a country club, then it is a zone change. So, what do you think of that, David? Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be okay because you get more money from a commercial establishment than you do from resident housing. I mean, that's simple truth. I mean, you have your point of view.
I said, is the answer to your zoning question okay?
The answer to my zoning question?
Yeah.
Well, I really didn't ask that question, but yeah, you answered a question that I didn't ask. That's fine.
Okay, so at this point, we'll just hold off, I guess.
I think we should send it out. There's nothing to lose by sending it out, is there?
Well, Tony, maybe you could speak to that. Is there some cost involved or?
No, it's prepared in draft form, and it would just have to be finalized and released. The question is,
Board has to see.
other issues going on at the club, right? In
Right.
terms of other proposals. But we could, if you so desire, we could send it out.
Well, I mean, it would seem like an act of good faith with the people who came to speak on this.
Yeah.
Send it out. I mean,
There's also a proposal by the New England Brewery for a brewery up there as well.
Okay. Which also involves housing.
Yes,
It does.
housing and commercial.
Right. He might run okay, what's the feeling of the board? I'll ask Sheila, go ahead. You're muted, my friend, I think.
Sorry, mute, unmute. Okay. So I believe it was the previous Board of Selectmen that was presented with the information on this petition, and I'm afraid I'm not up to speed enough on it. I would like to just hear more about it. I guess if we're going to consider whatever the draft RFP is and whatever how it relates to what was in the petition, maybe this Board of Selectmen should have a presentation. My thought.
You can send the draft RFP out to the board to take a look at before the next meeting if you want.
Right. So the petition itself, I think I understood that it was ruled not to be, the original petition said something about creating an ordinance that would then cause the town to do certain things. That part of it is not incorporated in the RFP. It's a completely different track.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it's not really, so people who signed that petition, this RFP isn't what was in the petition. There was no RFP envisioned in the petition, was there?
There was no, there wasn't. It was an ordinance. They wanted the town to pass an ordinance.
Yeah.
I think when you form a petition, it has to be looking for an ordinance or an ordinance change. Is that correct, Jerry?
No, I think the issue with that petition was that it did not comply with what an ordinance is. There's certain standards of what an ordinance is. To ask, ordinance has to be pretty general and apply to everything that's considered in the ordinance. You can't just make it specific for one location and for one use. It's got to affect the entire town. In other words, we have an ordinance for parking restrictions. It's a parking restrictions on all areas in town that apply to that ordinance. It's not a specific street. So it was improper, and the case law said it was improper. And I ruled after we got an opinion from Harmony Insurance that it was improper, that we couldn't proceed with the ordinance. But this is different. They're asking for an RFP to be sent out to see if there's any interest in any kind of a commercial establishment, and they're specific on the commercial establishment. They're talking about a banquet center, restaurant, and I heard restaurant, but I'm not sure that's included.
Okay.
So why don't we, would it be appropriate then to just send the draft RFP to the board for the next meeting, and we can?
Yeah, you can do that, and we'll send it
around further.
Whole thing.
Okay. All right. Anyone opposed to that? Okay, so we'll do that. Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Is that all for the non-executive session?
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you. So item 13 on the agenda is executive session. I will make a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-200, parens 6, parens C. I gotta get new glasses, sorry guys. Security devices regarding dispatch issues, and also pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-206B, litigation regarding a tax appeal settlement with Paul D. Harrigan at 27 Brook Road. Including the board, I will also invite Tony Genovese and Jerry Weiner into executive session. Anyone else need to come in, Jerry?
No, so long as the same people are relevant for both executive sessions, we can do them at once, at the same time, rather than have to come out and start a new one all over.
And they are, this board
Wait,
plus
so
and Tony.
Tony and me, there's no one else, right?
Correct. Okay.
He'd be relevant for both issues, I assume. Correct.
Thank you. All right. So I've made that motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe.
Second.
I will call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. David Vogel, yeah. Okay, thank you. It's unanimous. So we'll ask the cameras to turn off and Mrs. Shaw to leave shortly. And Betsy, good night.